The morning was supposed to be quiet, but instead, Isaiah Bell found himself staring down yet another violation slip on his own property. Standing in his driveway, clutching the pink notice, he faced Douglas Hale, a compliance officer for the Pine Ridge Estates HOA. Hale, dressed in khakis and wearing a badge that gave him an air of authority, jabbed a finger toward Isaiah's chest and declared, "This is private property, sir. You're in violation again." Isaiah clenched his jaw. "I live here," he said firmly. "That's my name on the deed. This is my driveway." But Hale was unmoved. He accused Isaiah of leaving his trash visible past the 6:30 a.m. deadline, an infraction he claimed had already earned multiple warnings. Isaiah countered, pointing out that it had been out for only 15 minutes, delayed by a late pickup, and that several neighbors still had their bins sitting out. None of them, however, had received tickets. From across the street, silent spectators watched. An older white couple peeking through their storm door, and Patricia Langley, the HOA president, standing rigid on her porch, arms crossed and lips tight. She didn't speak, didn't wave, just observed. Hale wrapped up the exchange with a clipped, "This is your 4th citation. One more and you'll face a disciplinary hearing." Then he walked off, leaving Isaiah holding a piece of paper that symbolized much more than garbage collection rules. Inside, Isaiah added the new notice to the growing pile on his kitchen counter. Each one was more absurd than the last. The first came after he'd been in the neighborhood barely a week, citing him for playing music Marvin Gaye at 6:15 p.m., well within normal hours. The second accused him of unauthorized lawn modifications for planting wildflowers his mother used to grow, a personal touch that supposedly clashed with the neighborhood aesthetic. The third was for blocking a sidewalk with his car, even though his tires hadn't crossed the property line. And now the trash can. Isaiah wasn't imagining things anymore. This wasn't random enforcement. It was targeted. His golden retriever, Bruno, padded into the kitchen, tail wagging, offering silent comfort. Isaiah patted his head, muttering, "Guess we'll have to document everything now." He pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the notice, then walked the block capturing pictures of other trash cans left out. No citations on them, of course. By noon, an email arrived from the HOA. For citations within 60 days meant his case would be reviewed at the next board meeting. Attendance not mandatory, but strongly advised. The note read coldly. No option for appeal. No explanation for the selective scrutiny. Frustrated, Isaiah forwarded the email to his sister Malika, a paralegal who specialized in civil rights cases. His message was short, "Tell me I'm not crazy." Later that evening, while walking Bruno, he reflected on the community's rigid sameness. The beige homes, clipped lawns, flags more decorative than patriotic, and the subtle isolation he felt. A neighbor crossed the street to avoid him. Another paused work to stare as he walked by. That night, Isaiah read through the HOA bylaws online. Words like nuisance, unauthorized, and visual clutter repeated, vague enough to bend at will, precise enough to weaponize. And deep down he knew this wasn't about rules. It was about control. And the target was him. The day of the HOA board meeting arrived like a storm on Isaiah's calendar. Though the letter said attendance wasn't mandatory, he knew he had to be there. If he stayed silent, they would twist his absence into guilt. He ironed a shirt, clipped Bruno's leash to the banister, and walked across the manicured lawns to the clubhouse. Inside, a small crowd had gathered. Folding chairs were arranged in stiff rows facing a long table where the HOA board sat. At the center was Patricia Langley, the president, wearing a pearl necklace that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. To her left sat Hale, his arms crossed smugly, a stack of citations in front of him like evidence in a trial. Isaiah spotted a few curious neighbors scattered in the back, whispering as he walked in. Patricia called the meeting to order, her tone clipped and official. First on the agenda, repeated violations by resident Isaiah Bell. Her voice lingered on his name. Hale stood and read the citations aloud. Noise violation, lawn violation, parking violation, trash violation. Each time, Isaiah countered calmly. My music was within hours. The flowers were native species. My car didn't block the sidewalk. And my trash can was out for less time than half the neighborhood. Patricia's expression didn't waver. Mr. Bell, she said, rules are rules. We strive for uniformity here. It maintains property values. Isaiah leaned forward. Uniformity or conformity? Because I see plenty of inconsistencies in enforcement. What I don't see are citations for anyone else. His words hung in the air, drawing a few murmurs from the back. Patricia stiffened. This isn't a debate. The board has the authority to impose fines and, if necessary, pursue legal action. Consider this your final warning. Isaiah opened his folder and slid across the table a series of photos he had taken. Trash cans left out, cars sticking past driveways, gardens full of non-standard plants. None of those residents had received citations. A ripple went through the room. Even a few board members shifted uneasily. But Patricia dismissed the evidence with a wave of her hand. We'll review these later. For now, we'll proceed as planned. It was then that a voice came from the back. Proceed? With what? Punishing him for existing? Heads turned to see Michael Grant, a neighbor Isaiah barely knew, stepping forward. He was holding a folder of his own. I've lived here 10 years. I've seen violations go ignored until Isaiah moved in. You're targeting him, and we all know why. Patricia tried to gavel him down, but Michael opened his folder, revealing printed emails. I have proof. Internal HOA messages about Isaiah. You called him a bad fit for the neighborhood. You said you didn't want the community changing too much. Gasps filled the room. For the first time, Patricia's composure cracked. Her cheeks flushed, and Hale's eyes widened. The whispers grew louder. Michael placed the emails on the table, his voice firm. This isn't about rules. It's about race. Isaiah sat back, stunned. Someone had finally said aloud what he had felt all along. And now there was proof. The clubhouse erupted into chaos. Neighbors whispered. Some stood. Others pulled out phones to snap pictures of the exposed emails. Patricia slammed her gavel, her voice sharp. Order! This meeting is not the place for baseless accusations. But the words rang hollow. Everyone had seen Michael's documents. Isaiah leaned forward. Baseless? Then explain those emails. Explain why I've been fined for things my neighbors do every day. His voice wasn't raised, but the steel in it silenced the room more effectively than Patricia's gavel. Hale tried to intervene. You don't understand how compliance works. We monitor complaints, we respond to issues. Michael cut him off, shaking his head. No. I live 3 houses down. Nobody filed complaints about Isaiah. I know because I checked. These came from you, the board. You went out of your way to target him. Gasps and murmurs swelled again. Patricia fumbled for control. We have every right to maintain standards. Standards? Michael shot back. Or prejudice. Because the language in these emails isn't about lawns or trash cans. It's about not wanting the community to change. What exactly do you mean by that, Patricia? The silence that followed was suffocating. Patricia's eyes darted, searching for support among the board, but several members avoided her gaze. One even shifted his chair slightly away from her, a subtle sign of distancing. Isaiah finally spoke again, his tone measured. I moved here to live in peace, to have the same rights as anyone else. I pay my dues. I follow the rules. But from the moment I arrived, I was treated like an intruder. His voice broke slightly before he steadied it. And now I know why. The room was still. Even those who hadn't sided with him could no longer pretend this was just about trash cans and lawn care. The truth was out. Patricia, red-faced, declared the meeting adjourned and stormed out, Hale trailing behind her. But the damage was already done. Michael handed copies of the emails to Isaiah. You'll need these, he said quietly. They can't bury it now. Afterward, neighbors approached Isaiah. Some apologized for staying silent. Others offered words of support. A few still looked uncomfortable, unwilling to confront the uglier reality, but the tide had shifted. For the first time, Isaiah didn't feel completely alone. That night, back in his kitchen, Isaiah spread the emails across the table. Reading the lines in black and white sent chills through him. Phrases like, "He doesn't fit our image," and "We can't let Pine Ridge become something it's not." It was undeniable. He thought of his parents, who had always warned him that success and dignity wouldn't shield him from prejudice. They were right, but he also thought of Michael, a neighbor who had risked his standing to speak up. That courage gave Isaiah strength. He picked up the phone and called Malika. "We have evidence now. Real evidence." Her reply was immediate. "Good. Then it's time to fight back." The days following the HOA meeting felt different. For once, Isaiah wasn't the only one carrying the weight of suspicion and hostility. Now the truth had been exposed, and the community buzzed with whispers of accountability. The leaked emails spread quickly among residents. Some pretended not to care, but many were furious, demanding answers from the very people who claimed to protect property values. Patricia tried to spin the story. She sent out a carefully worded HOA newsletter, claiming the emails were taken out of context, and that the board's intentions were never discriminatory. But her words only fanned the flames. Screenshots of the emails circulated online, stripped of spin, and the prejudice was unmistakable. Residents began questioning past enforcement decisions, why certain families were fined relentlessly while others skated by untouched. Patterns emerged, and they all pointed back to the same thing: selective enforcement. Isaiah, with Malika's help, filed a formal complaint with the state's Housing Commission, attaching the emails as evidence. He also sought legal counsel, preparing for a discrimination lawsuit. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't playing defense anymore. He had a case, and the law was on his side. Meanwhile, Michael became something of a local hero. Though some neighbors avoided him for challenging the board, many thanked him for his bravery. He explained his motives simply: "Silence is complicity. I couldn't watch it happen anymore." His decision sparked conversations across Pine Ridge. Some residents admitted they had long suspected bias but hadn't wanted to get involved. Others confessed guilt for ignoring the obvious. The pressure mounted until the HOA board was forced to hold another meeting, this time open to all residents. The clubhouse overflowed with people, voices raised in anger and determination. Patricia tried to maintain order, but the calls for her resignation were deafening. Board members who once stood firmly behind her now distanced themselves, fearing the backlash. Finally, under immense pressure, Patricia stepped down, her reputation shattered. Hale, too, faced consequences. His aggressive targeting of Isaiah was scrutinized, and he resigned before a vote to remove him could be held. For Isaiah, it was vindication. Not only had the truth come out, but the people responsible were finally facing accountability. Weeks later, Isaiah walked Bruno down the same street where neighbors once avoided his gaze. This time, several greeted him warmly. Some stopped to chat. The air felt different, lighter. The scars weren't gone, but change was happening. At a community gathering organized by supportive neighbors, Isaiah spoke briefly. "I didn't ask for this fight," he said. "I just wanted to live in peace. But when you're forced to defend your dignity, you do it. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who might come after you." Applause filled the room, not loud or raucous, but steady, affirming. Later that night, as Isaiah sat on his porch, he thought about what the past months had taught him. Prejudice could wear many masks: rules, bylaws, even polite smiles. But the truth always found a way out. Thanks to one neighbor's courage, the HOA's mask had cracked. And though the fight wasn't over, Isaiah no longer felt like a lone target. He was part of something bigger, a community learning to confront its own reflection.